I think it's more that we've been brought up learning that duct tape is the solution to everything.
It's a lie.
Duct tape is not the solution to your gender issues.
I feel like we need to like call up duct tape now and be like the duct
Can
tape
you
company.
sponsor?
Like wondering is we just recently said that you're not the solution to anyone's gender issues, but you have this opportunity to be the solution to other people's gender issues. Would you like to sponsor some transitional services or like
duct tape comes out with a binder and a gaff.
I would respect duct tape for that.
Dude, I'm imagining going and buying that in Home Depot now.
It's like, what did you? I got some batteries. I got some new light fixtures, and I got a gaff. Bring that up for you.
Welcome to the DMAB Octopus podcast. We built this podcast with our own decor.
Greetings from the depths of our sea. You already know my name. I am in a hurry, so let me get right down to this. Trigger warnings for this episode include ostracization, homophobia, transphobia, medication and surgery, and self-endangerment. Please be a responsible listener. Now, I have to go, so I will not be joining you this time around. You are welcome to walk right in. Go ahead. The rest of the group doesn't bite. And, have fun. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This is episode 6, Candy Corn and How to Have a Conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the Geometric Octopus podcast miniseries.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Featuring Cosmo and
Klaus.
Tracy. Oh, that's nice.
oh, I'm sorry. I read for you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Say your name. Say your name.
In memory of Kyle.
Cosmo. And Kyle is not with us today, so please pray for him and his homework.
Yeah.
He's all of our support.
Yeah.
We need support. We're not doing our homework either.
Well, to be fair, they didn't really hear much from him on any of the previous ones, so...
Well,
He's a brave soul. We're cowards because we support ourselves too much.
Yeah, no, seriously though, like I was planning on having this episode, like, trying to get him to talk a little bit more, but
alas, oh well.
alas, he is not here,
He's
so...
doing the Lord's work. He's finishing his grades. You know. We're not.
Cosmo,
Yes.
where did we leave off last time?
Rambling about Mad Max, Deadpool, and his pansexuality.
Well, we did that, yeah.
Cinema in general, mainstream portrayal, especially of transgender people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So,
Oh my God, my partner's brother has been throwing a fit for the last, like, he found out yesterday about Deadpool being confirmed pansexual, and he's just losing his mind. He
Wait,
can't. He
he's
can't
upset?
handle it.
He's upset
He
about
can't
it?
handle it. Yeah, because
it makes me happy. What the hell?
well, same. But it's like,
Deadpool's been pansexual basically since he was introduced.
exactly.
Why would
Like-
anybody be upset about that? That means Deadpool is available to everybody.
Well, I mean, if
Now
you're
everyone,
like, panphobic.
Everyone can bang Deadpool.
Dude,
Amazing.
Deadpool death.
Yeah, that's about as pan as it gets.
I'd pay to see that scene.
Although, to be fair, death is female identified
Oh, okay.
within the Marvel universe.
That would have
But-
been more interesting if death had not been gendered, but we know, whatever.
A skeleton. Breasts.
There's no reason for this.
we need to get back on track.
Let's quickly review all the things we've covered. We've lightly covered a lot of this. So we've covered intersex, conversion therapy. We've talked about textbooks and their reference to cisgendered individuals.
Yeah,
We've talked about such things as the binary being a European construct, or at least a cultural construct.
Yeah, for the most part, there are other cultures, obviously, that do have this concept of the gender binary. For the most part, it's just Europe. Yeah.
We also mentioned cultural appropriation. We talked about imperialism, a lot about imperialism.
Imperialism.
We talked about
The Roman Empress that was transgender and invented the whoopee cushion and was killed before she was like 19.
Yeah, she was still tiny.
Jeez. We talked about the socialization and stigmatization.
And also, the Roman Empress, the transgender Roman Empress, also spent most of her life looking around for a doctor who could provide her with surgery.
And that's why we have most of the proof of why, like, okay, there's definitely a transgender empress.
Because she was looking for a doctor that could, give her surgery. Obviously, at that point in time, was not really an option.
It's not very great now. It would have been difficult then, to say the very least.
Yeah.
Roman medicine was better than it was in the medieval period, though, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if we're going to be talking about medical procedures, we should probably talk about how very little money is pumped into the development of new procedures for this.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a pretty great jumping off point for our discussion for this section. Is number one, most medical procedures and medicines for transgender people are actually developed for cisgender people.
Absolutely.
Like most anti-androgens are developed for cisgender males. I know ketoconazole is not necessarily the greatest anti-androgen because it's it's got some pretty bad side effects, but it's used as both a drug for treating prostate cancer and a drug for treating male pattern baldness, which most anti-androgens are actually used to treat male pattern baldness.
Makes life a little bit interesting.
Yeah. Estrogen supplements generally created for cisgender women.
Postmenopausal cisgender women, specifically. I took a course on human anatomy a while back, and I believe you were with it, Tracy. Yeah, you were in that course. Cosmo, were you in that course?
No.
I was trying to remember who else was in that course. Oh well, I know Tracy was.
I heard bad things about it, so.
Yeah. it was not the greatest course that we ever took, but I remember like one of the first things I did going through the textbook was just searching through the index for topics and just talking about hormone replacement therapy. There's no mention of transgender people. There's only mention of postmenopausal cisgender women, which is ridiculous.
Interesting. And then you've also got to look at. Sorry, this is kind of jumping off. If you're looking at transgender men, most testosterone supplements are almost entirely developed for cisgender males.
Absolutely. As
essentially cosmetic things. And then if we're looking at surgeries, GRS surgeries are extremely, extremely dangerous and have a very high rate of complications. Even if you're just looking at GRS surgeries for transgender women, if you're looking at phalloplasty or other procedures like that for transgender men, not
only is it incredibly inefficient, it's also very dangerous and can result in permanent damage to sexual organs, reproductive organs. It sometimes involves removing skin and muscle from other parts of the body, which is horrifying and yeah, it's a mess.
So glad I'm not a trans dude.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of trans men don't get that kind of surgery
exactly.
because it's so dangerous and it costs so much. And I've spoken with people who have gone through the full transitional process, like just for surgeries. Normally, it doesn't start with going like, well, my end goal is going to be phalloplasty. My end goal is going to be like completely cis-passing in every aspect of my life, every aspect of my body. And it doesn't start like that. It starts typically with like, well, okay, I can, if I'm just going to get top surgery, or I'm just going to get testosterone. Because those are like the things that people who want to present as men typically think at first. It's just like, I want hormones, I want top surgery. Because those are the most obvious things typically. It's just like, what does your voice sound like? What does your chest look like? And that's, of course, an entirely different thing when we're talking about like binding. And again, that's one of the issues where when we're talking about resources that are available for transgender people, binding it's only recently become something where like you can actually get chest binders for transgender people as opposed to cisgender males with gynecomastia, which is a condition in which cisgender men who have developed breasts through any number of reasons why they could have. Typically it's exposure to estrogen. There's been cases in which cisgender men have accidentally come into contact with their cisgender wives' estrogen creams. That's what's turned into that kind of thing. And there's a specific company I'm thinking of, and it is it Underworks?
Yeah, I believe so. Underworks is the binder company.
I think it's
Most popular, at least.
It's the most common. It's definitely the most. It's one of the most inexpensive, and I personally have two of theirs. And
shout out, man.
Shout out.
I mean, hey, if you want a sponsor.
But I'm about to throw some shade at you, Underworks, because.
Oy, okay. That lasted all of 10 seconds.
Yeah, actually, I'm about to throw some shade because, like, for one, I thank you for like having a thing and being one of the first people who make these things available. But like, also screw you, because you don't seem to understand or market towards your transgender client base for some reason, and I don't really understand why. Even if there are some cases when I've seen your binders marketed towards transgender people who wish to bind, but it's very rarely, and and also you don't really know how to make them for transgender people. You don't. Your binders are a last resort in most cases, or in some cases a first resort, because other people don't have options. Now, transitioning to shout out to company GC2B. That is a binder company made by transgender people for transgender people who wish to bind. And their binders are awesome. I have one. They're really cool. They work really well. They're way more comfortable. And that's what you get when you actually cater to your client base. They work.
Yeah. One of the things... Sorry. One of the things
Wait,
kind
what are
of...
you doing?
I don't know.
How are you doing?
Sorry. Oh. Uh-oh.
Well...
Sorry. One of the things, if you're looking at binders, that's one of the places where transgender men kind of have it easier in some senses in terms of finding binders. Because you can find binders online, but you cannot... It's very, very difficult to find GAF online. And it's even more difficult to find that at a store. And also, GAFs are almost entirely made, designed, and marketed toward cisgender males who are wanting to be drag queens.
What is a gaff?
A gaff is a device used to make it look like you do not have genitalia that is outside your body. And it is... From what I have read, because, you know, obviously I do not have one yet because it's extremely difficult to find. What I'm essentially trying to say is it's very, very difficult to find those, and those are extremely painful and can result in... Actually, those can result in death as well from loss of blood flow. So that's nice.
Love how
same thing with binders, because binders can, if worn improperly, break ribs.
They can do that if they're worn properly too.
Yeah.
There's no safe zone. There is no safe zone.
Yeah. That's always fun.
Not to mention, like, getting sick or having asthma while wearing a binder is
Oh.
the worst thing that can possibly ever happen to your entire life. You feel like you're gonna die, and it comes an emergency. You can die.
At least binders are better than what many trans men in the past have used as for their first times trying to chest bind.
Well, about that's actually an important issue, and that's not something that's entirely limited to the past. That
Yeah,
improper
that's
binding
true.
is a constant problem that especially a lot of young transgender people who are DFAB have.
DFAB being designated female at birth.
Yes. Also, other terms that may be used include assigned female at birth, abbreviated to AFAB. The same thing works for assigned male or designated male. There's other terms involved, coercively assigned, but that's a bit less used and often used in reference to intersex people. Anyway, vocabulary lesson.
Yes.
When we're talking about binding, especially in young people with breasts who want to bind, let's say that, their typical exposure to what they need to do is typically actually like ace bandages, which is incredibly dangerous. And I know personally people, including myself, who did. And I personally had no idea, and neither did anyone else I talked to, except, well, I do know a couple of people who did know the risks but continued to bind with ace bandages anyway because of the lack of resources and lack of being able to come out into a safe space and be like, hey, adult figure who is responsible for my care and safety, this is a problem that I have, assist me please. You can't a lot of times say that. So when we're talking about ace bandages, the risks that actually come with binding with ace bandages, you're cracking ribs, because ace bandages, what they do is they tighten when they're being expanded, because that's what ace bandages are meant to do, for like swelling ankles or swelling wrists. When you have an ace bandage around your chest is constantly expanding and contracting because you're breathing. So every time that a person binds with an ace bandage, they're running the risk of an ace bandage constricting, damaging their back, damaging their ribs, their lungs, their skin. It's incredibly dangerous, and I personally am very fortunate that I didn't have any permanent problems. I know people who do have permanent problems from ace bandage binding, and I've met people before who, even cisgender female people who, like, they want to crossplay, they want to like dress up as a male character and not have breasts. They bind with ace bandages anyway. They don't know the risks, and they don't know the damage that they're doing, and they don't know binders exist because it's such a limited field.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for gaffs. The same thing goes for other situations in which, like, constrictive material.
It's
not safe.
I can tell you, to be quite honest, I did not know that there was anywhere that actually sold gaffs for a very, very long time. Like, I had always, whenever I read about them, I read about people making them, and I definitely did not have, and still do not have, the resources to make one, or the place to buy them. And the thing about that is, rather than ace bandages, most trans girls or people who want to make it look like they do not have a penis, they tend to use duct tape, which is not good.
Yeah.
Oh no, that sounds like a really bad
Because you're
Halloween
using...
project.
You're using duct tape
What-
on some of the most sensitive skin in your body, walking around with said duct tape on, and you have to take it off every time you go to the bathroom.
That's scary.
Yeah. And that's all. That's another thing that's used with trans men, people who bind as well, because duct tape's also something that's used. I was once coercively told to bind with duct tape for a convention, and it was possibly the worst experience of my life. Mm-hmm. It's not safe. It's not a good idea, and people don't know it.
And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have duct taped parts of your body that should not be duct taped, take them off.
This is just
while
general,
taking an hour-long warm shower to loosen the duct tape first, because otherwise you will rip off skin.
Just in general recommendation, no one ever
Also-
puts duct tape on your genitals. Just don't ever do it.
Duct tape also is used by some people, including trans women or other people who do not have access to wax, for trying to like wax legs. And it is not good material because it does not just bind to the hairs.
Yeah.
It binds to the skin, and when you try to rip it off, you also tend to rip off skin. So that's not That's not good.
Call out post for duct tape. You keep making trans people do stuff.
I don't think it's them making trans people do stuff. I think it's more.
You're allowing them.
I think it's more that we've been brought up learning that duct tape is the solution to everything.
It's a lie.
Duct
It's
tape
not
is
true.
so duct tape is not the solution to your gender issues.
I think we need to like call up duct tape now and be like the duct
Can
tape
you
company.
sponsor?
Like wondering is we've just recently said that you're not the solution to anyone's gender issues, but you have this opportunity to be the solution to other people's gender issues. Would you like to sponsor some transitional services or maybe like
Duct tape comes out with a binder and a gaff.
I would respect duct tape for that.
Dude, I'm imagining going and buying that in Home Depot now.
It's like, what did you? I got some batteries. I got some new light fixtures, and I got a gaff. Bring that up for you. I feel like those weird duct tape patterns too, like the bacon pattern duct tape, except it's a binder.
Day has passed like a hurricane to my heart, took it far away. See the lights on the other side. I'm going to get there and hope we will meet there.
Yeah, I saw a petition on change.org for getting Target and other major stores or retailers to supply binders. Didn't see anything about gaffs, but it did mention binders.
Binders do actually tend to get a lot more
Yeah.
publicity than gaffs for some
That would-
reason.
yeah.
But they're both equally important
Yeah.
pieces of equipment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it would be really cool if they were to do that because I mean, yes, it's technically like what 1% of the population or something.
It's the same. It's roughly the same number of Americans who live in Chicago.
Okay, so what percentage of the population was that again?
Do you want me to remember the statistic?
I
off
don't
the
know.
top of
I
my
think
head? 'Cause I
it's
don't.
roughly like 1 or 2% of the population by my memory, and you know they're already marketing stuff to that 1 to 2% of the population. I mean, they sell candy corn.
The 1% of the population likes candy corn.
To be fair, I like candy corn, so
Avery likes candy. Oh my god, the 2 asexuals like candy corn. How statistically likely is that? The 1% of the 1%. Unbelievable.
you heard it here first. Asexuals like candy corn.
Kill Bill Sirens.
We don't need to be processing more stereotypes.
Candy
We laugh-
corns are greater than sex.
Oh.
It's true. 100% true.
Candy corns are mediocre at best. I will fight you. I will fight both of you. I will fight people I love because I hate candy corn.
I dislike candy corn.
I like
League of candy corn haters.
I try to give it a chance every time. Like, I'll give it one more chance. I'll take a bite. No, what have I done? What have I done?
It's like it's a constant series of mistakes.
Yeah.
I will fight you.
Anyway,
Oh
so
my god.
But they do taste good when they're ground up and put in cookies.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
true because it's just sugar. It's like dried fondant.
So that's one of the interesting things is, for the most part, if you're looking at things pre-surgery or even surgery up to top surgery, trans men tend to have a little bit of an easier time finding things.
Well, it's almost marginal, to be perfectly honest. Within the trans community, of course, there's a lot more publicity for binders and such. I don't really know why, because
within the trans community, there's a lot, which is interesting because within the trans community, there's also a lot less mention generally of transgender men.
It's
which is
weird.
Which is very, very odd, but. And also, if you look at it, hormones tend to have more of an effect on transgender men.
Oh, come on. You get to grow breasts.
That is true. However, your voice drops, and...
Okay, there's the trade-off. You get to grow breasts, and transgender people who take testosterone get their voices to drop. Now, if the testosterone could, like, remove breasts, and estrogen could, like, raise your voice, then it'd be completely even again.
Also, testosterone gives facial hair as well, so there's... Yes, it does not take away the breasts, but because top surgery is a lot less dangerous than basically any other surgery for trans people, I'd say that there's kind of a bit of a trade-off there.
The reason that there's a lot top surgery for trans men and people who want top surgery in general is because top surgery has been largely developed for cisgender women who are at risk for things such as breast cancer.
Yeah. No, I know. Obviously, this is getting back to...
This is not a trans privilege kind of thing.
It's not on you.
What? Well, I was just going to say that I think that we should ask the question at this point. What is top surgery? And maybe we can go back and insert that.
Oh, sorry.
We did this again.
Top surgery is a surgery that reduces, it's also known as breast reduction surgery. It reduces the size of the breast, or mastectomy. Basically, you take off the breast.
You know what amazes me and kind of scares me a little is that I realize that the reason why I didn't say anything is that I understand everything they've been saying, so...
Yeah.
And I forgot Tracy probably doesn't know some of this stuff, so...
Yeah,
well,
so...
No, I mean, there were some things that I didn't know, some things that I knew, but I think that, for the listeners at home, we got...
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of lingo,
it's
so.
really... There's a lot of language kind of almost explicitly used by the trans community, and I think it's definitely very good that we have you guys here, that we have the two cis guys here, so if something flies over your heads, we can use terminology that the average listener would understand.
But it's kind of hard to have these discussions, honestly, because of that reason of vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because and I'm not the first person who's posited this, but especially online, when having discussions about transgender issues, a lot of the time these discussions get derailed by vocabulary lessons, and this is not one of those cases where that's a problem, because this is not a high in community discussion about a very specific thing, although we have kind of done that a few times. It's not exclusively that kind of discussion, but sometimes, like, okay, let's choose a very specific issue. The differences between whether or not we want to say designated, assigned, or coercively assigned at birth. That's a very specific in community issue. And it's also an intersex issue. So if that discussion is happening, this is typically a discussion that's happening among highly educated, highly qualified people to be talking about it, typically members of the trans community or the intersex community or both. So these people don't need to be using language that is accessible to everyone, because they're not talking to everyone. They're talking to each other, because this is an issue for them. However, sometimes these conversations, a lot of the times these conversations, are invaded by people who don't know the language, and who don't know the background, who don't know the history, and who don't have anything invested. So, but as soon as someone in the discussion tries to say, instead of saying, like, okay, well, this is what that means, they'll say, like, look, we're not going to stop to explain this to you, because this, first of all, this isn't your issue. Second of all, why are you coming into this discussion without a background? Third of all, you're derailing the conversation to have a discussion about language. And as soon as you say, like, okay, we're not going to stop to explain this, it turns into like this, like, what do you mean you're not going to make this accessible to everyone? This is why you don't have support. This is why cis people don't support you. And it's like, no, cis people don't support the transgender community, not because they feel alienated. It's because they didn't want to in the first place, and it's just now coming out.
It's like putting your foot out and tripping someone and be like, oh, I'm sorry, you're supposed to not get in my way.
God.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't put your freaking foot out in the first place. God.
Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things is if you're gonna jump into a conversation like that, even if you're trans, you should try to look up on other forums, particularly what the definition of those things is. Like, Google is there
It's right there
for a reason. Like, to be completely honest, you can look it up. We have the internet now.
Queer people are not your search engines.
That's one
I
thing
mean, they might be
dislike.
somewhat more. They can more easily facilitate the conversation sometimes, but a lot of times it's like no one's obligated to do a vocabulary lesson every time this kind of subject comes up.
Yeah, and that's not vocabulary lessons get on my nerves. And whenever I try to explain anything that's just slightly different to what someone's used to, it's like, oh, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm like, I know you're an internet user. You like
You got
Anne
your
said,
smartphone
you have Google
right there.
Please don't ask me. Just, I would think more highly of you if you on the side looked it up and then came back knowing.
To be honest.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of situation if, like, say, like, two people are discussing a movie or such, like, they're discussing the intricacies of whether or not James Cameron's Avatar is deeply racist. It is. These people are having a discussion about the very distinct intricacies of James Cameron's Avatar. They're talking about specific issues, they're talking about specific lines, specific character arcs, and someone busts in the door and says, I haven't seen this movie, but what are you talking about?
It's like, well, let's first discuss the graphics.
Well,
and then after we're off that easy topic, let's discuss the white hero and all that
oh
stuff.
yeah, the white savior.
There's a lot of issues with James Cameron's Avatar. Throwing shade at you, James Cameron, just letting you know.
But let's go back to Titanic, because it's easier to talk about Titanic.
Throw some shade at Titanic, too, while we're at it, you know? Mix it up. But anyway, the whole idea that someone can come into a conversation and demand to know the background without doing any of their own research, doing something as basic as Googling, or in the case of our movie metaphor, something as basic as finding a copy of the movie and watching it, the most basic thing you can do before entering a conversation. It's...
Generally, conversations...
You're doing the bare minimum.
Conversations require language, and if you go into a conversation in any field with no idea what the language is, and it's a conversation that's already going on, people do not need to stop their conversation to explain to you what they're talking about, because they're talking with someone who knows what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And of course those resources exist to people for...
Oh, absolutely. Like,
space.
I know, when I was first finding out about, transgender issues, that was kind of the first thing that I looked up was, okay, what do these things mean? I didn't go in and ask people what they meant. I went and looked up what they meant, and if there was something that came up in a conversation that I was completely confused about, I would either look it up, and if I couldn't find it, I would ask somebody what it meant. And if I was asking somebody what it meant, it was generally somebody who was either not actively participating in the conversation, so I would not derail the conversation, like I would private message someone asking them, or it would have been a conversation when they were talking to me, in which I was able to say, hold up, I don't know that word. In the same way as in a real life conversation, you can say, I'm sorry, I have no clue what that word means. However, if you're jumping into a conversation and saying that every second word...
Okay, restart.
What is that?
Dang it. Some stuff is falling.
Oh, avalanche.
My wandering elbow.
I have no clue when that happens, so this is going to be fun jumping back. If you're in a conversation with somebody and you don't know what a singular word means, you're going to ask them what that word means. If you're in a conversation and you don't know what any of the words mean, you probably should go learn somewhere else before you get into that conversation.
Put that on the shirt.
Let's be clear, though. We're talking about internet conversations.
Oh,
Real life
to
conversations
be
are
fair,
different.
well, I was talking about real life conversations when I said that,
Well,
but also same tends to go, same should go for internet conversations. It doesn't, but it should.
Well, I think it even more for internet conversations because the internet is literally right there and you can look it up. But if you're having a real life conversation and the issue at hand is really immediate, you don't have time to go and Google the terms.
You kind of look like a jerk if you're gonna be like, sorry, 1 second, what about your smartphone? Like, don't do that.
Oh, like
But-
that commercial for BuzzFeed. Yeah.
But like, if you want to actually talk about in the equivalent situation to busting into an internet forum and derailing a conversation about a very specific issue would be like walking into a college classroom in the middle of a course on how about astrophysics and being like, "What's gravity?"
Yeah.
It's like, no. You don't even know the bare minimum. Please leave the classroom and go take some kind of preliminary course before you can come back.
Like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
I don't think gravity exists.
I would like to posit that Newton was
believe-
completely wrong.
I believe that my gods are the things that hold me in place. And then it's just like, that's not even the point.
So you just busted into a conversation you have no context about and no background in and no education in and demanded that someone else respect your opinion.
Maybe we should talk about respect. Basic human respect.
Basic human respect.
Oh, yeah.
Things that shouldn't have to be explained but are.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
But there are people out there, I know, I'm not sure, but our listeners may be transphobic.
Well, if they are, they probably should have been phased out by now. But
Right?
if for
Yeah,
some reason you're
wha-
still here,
this is
I'm
the-
addressing
this
y'all
is
in
the-
particular.
Yeah, this is like the third or fourth part of the podcast.
Yeah, if,
Maybe
if
it's
you're,
got
if you're
some
still
hardcore haters.
listening and you're still saying, "Wow, I hate transgender people," or anything on those lines, and yet you're still listening, thinking that we are funny, or Klaus and Anne are hilarious, well then you've got some issues going on. Or no, you just have problems. You have problems.
This is going to be a good time for an episode like Dragged on Camera.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Like,
If
you
they're
drag
if
some
they're
listeners.
transphobic, they would probably have been weeded out in the first episode
But
because
maybe they're not. Who knows?
I
Congratulations, you are
Yeah.
not transphobic.
yeah.
Probably not.
If you've got
Hey, so I will be filling in for Kyle in his absence. This is Cosmo, as you may know. Anne Beaudoin, Cosmo Cavanaugh, Kyle Mitchell, Tracy Metcalf, and our featured guest, Klaus McHendry, spent way too much time sitting around joking about bad puns and whatnot. So what you have heard so far are the trimmed snippets. If you stay vigilant until the end of this series, we will treat you with a massive bloopers episode, and you are not going to want to miss that. Any questions, comments, or contributions that you may have for the show can be sent to geometricoctopus@gmail.com. Again, we would love to hear about your own experiences with gender and sexuality as well, if you are willing. I need to be on my way out of here, so thanks for listening, and we will be back real soon, continuing where we left off about basic respect and the rest of our constant conversations. Bloop bloop!